All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Tara with Idlewild Journeys, formerly Vacations by Tara, and I'm here with the amazing Jen Haskler from Arch Rome Right Insurance. And they are the travel insurance that I use probably 90% of the time.
Love
Um,
that.
so um, some people need slightly different policies, and we talk about that when you book a trip. But she's my go-to for all of my personal travel insurance. Um, Jen, I just wanted to talk a little bit today about a lot of people ask why they need travel insurance because when they book the trip, they fully intend on traveling.
Of course, we all attend on traveling, right? So, there's more to just cancellation though to the policy. So yes, there is trip cancellation. So before you travel, there's covered reasons like an unforeseen sickness, injury, death of you or a non-traveling family member. People tend to forget that part too. Like they think they're going, they're healthy, they're fine, but what about mom? What about dad? What about
Mhm.
grandparents? Those things. So the trip cancellation is a key part of it. But then there's also while you're on your trip care, there's medical evacuation. We assist with those treatments, making sure everything's okay. There's misconnection. Airlines are wild these days. So misconnections, trip delays, there's all benefits there that they can use. So it's just a lot more than just not going on the trip.
Right. Because I personally am never going to cancel a trip unless it's an emergency. But
Hmm.
I just a couple of years ago had an acquaintance that I went to school with. He and his wife had booked a cruise and not through me. So we didn't have the insurance discussion.
Hmm.
And his wife fell a couple of weeks before their cruise and broke her elbow.
Mm.
And she thought she was going to need she was going to have surgery. They thought it was going to be while they were on their trip,
Hmm.
and he was so angry because the cruise line would not refund him his money. Their first question they asked was, did you buy insurance?
Right.
So most of the suppliers that I work with will not refund your trip for a death in the family or an accident or illness. So just be aware of that going in. They're like most likely not going to refund you
Correct. Right.
past a certain date anyway.
Hmm.
So you kind of mentioned some of the things travel insurance covers. And
Right.
one of the big things I think is medical.
Hmm.
So what a lot of people don't realize is that your medical insurance that you have here in the United States most likely will not cover you once you leave the US.
Correct. Right.
So what kind of medical cover? I mean, what does somebody do if they're in destination and they have a medical issue?
Yeah. So for minor things, maybe pink eye, stomach bug, those kind of things, just find your closest doctor. If you're on a ship, go to the infirmary. And then, you can get your treatment, your medication. You can pay out of pocket for those things if it's not a financial hardship, and be on your way. Just keep your receipts. If you've missed an activity, make sure, you have something ensuring that you didn't go to that activity or, if you're on excursion for that day. But the main thing is you have to go see a doctor. So that's for like minor things. Now, obviously, there's more severe things, heart attacks, broken legs. Like, I don't know. There's a ton of things. I don't want to jinx anything.
Right.
um, but for those things, you can call our assistance team and they can. Oh, and actually, our assistance team for minor things, this is new. We have teleservices. So if it is something minor, they could
Nice.
call our team and get a teleservice visit, and that could be the check for the doctor. But for more serious things, they immediately obviously want to get to the closest facility of care, and then from there, they would like to they call our team, and we can assist with their treatments. If they're not in the right kind of hospital, we can evacuate them to the next closest available hospital. We'll monitor that treatment. We'll do guarantee of payments. There's some countries who won't even let you in the hospital without like $50,000 upfront. And I don't have $50,000 just to put on a card or something like that. Most people don't have that. So an assistance team like ours would be able to do a guarantee of payment um, to help you with your care there. And then from there, you'll just work with our team. If it needs to end your trip completely, reach out to your travel advisor, make sure that, they can cancel the rest of it. And we can help with evacuation back home if needed as well. So
And like
a lot of moving parts there.
what kind of evacuation? So that's what I think a lot of people don't understand is about the evacuation. So I'm on the ship in the middle of the Caribbean,
Hmm. So it's
and
possible. Yeah, it's possible from a middle of a ship in Caribbean to like have a medical evacuation fly you out. Sometimes they can get you to the port. They'll take you. You always see a line of ambulances when you get to port, right? They're all waiting to pick up people to take them to the hospital, and then from there we could do the evacuation. And sometimes the evacuation is literally you broke your leg and you need first class tickets to get home. Sometimes it is like a full on medical helicopter. It just depends on the situation for that evacuation.
Okay, perfect. And you and I, we were just in Houston at an event together, and we were discussing when you were sitting at my table. We just read this article. We'd both seen it about a gentleman who's traveling in Switzerland,
Yes, yeah.
and it was a, everybody's wanting to bash on healthcare right now and insurance companies, and this was about United Healthcare.
Mhm.
So United was not doing anything for him. And we briefly just touched on that, which was he left the country.
Right.
And so his health insurance, United, didn't cover him out of the country. He did not purchase health insurance. He had a catastrophic skiing accident, was paralyzed.
Correct. Yeah.
Um, so his family was facing hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to get him back home. And they were big mad at United.
hmm But it wasn't their, yeah, any domestic insurance in general typically does not cover you outside the US. So
Right.
once you, like you said, like once you leave the US, you're kind of on your own. So having some sort of care, whether it's just a post-departure benefit plan, so after travel, like while you're traveling care, or, a whole thing that includes trip cancellation, you need to have at the minimum some kind of medical. I mean, my brother-in-law's aunt was on a Caribbean cruise, had a massive heart attack at 47. And she did not have insurance, and the amount it costs for, getting her off the ship and bringing her back to Miami, they didn't know what hospital she was in. If she would have had insurance, we would have known where she was. We would have known, we would have had benefits for someone flying down. Like we still obviously paid for someone to fly down, but like
Right.
that would have been covered. And then when she passed away, how do you get her body back from Florida to her home state? So that's also things that our assistance team would take care of. So just that ease of comfort for me knowing that if I have insurance and I were to die, that my children, my husband, my parents would never have to worry about where do we call, who do we do? And I work in the industry, and they were like my family was calling me, and I'm like, I don't, they don't, she doesn't have insurance. I don't know what to do. Um, so it's really important to have
Right.
that
And,
piece of it.
sadly, that does happen a lot. People pass away on vacation and you need to get them home.
Yeah.
Um, so one of the things that is confusing for a lot of people is cancel for any reason.
hmm
So can you talk a little bit about what a cancel for any reason policy is?
Yeah, so there's two types really. There's a cancel for any reason that you can get with your suppliers for the most part, and that plan is most of the time it's going to give you a credit for future travel, but it allows you to cancel for any reason up until a couple of days before the trip.
Right.
With travel insurance, if you were to buy it through Arch Rome Right, you have to buy it within the first 21 days of booking your trip. So that's a key part of it. Even if your trip at that time is non-refundable, you still need to insure your deposit to start and then
Mhm.
increase it over time if you need to. And then if you could cancel for any reason up until 2 days prior, for up to 75% back. So maybe you're at 100% penalty and the trip's $100 because I'm really bad at math. We're going to do $100. You would get, and if you're at $100, we'll give you $75 back. And that's for any reason you want to cancel. Maybe it's a husband or a bride and groom going on a trip and the groom decides he doesn't want to show up, or the bride decides she's not going to show up. That can be a cancel for any reason benefit.
Okay. And then one of the things
And that's
people,
cash back. I'm sorry. I don't know if I mentioned that. That's
okay,
with our end, it's cash back.
perfect. And then one of the things I've heard people say, well, during COVID, I had insurance and I
Mhm.
didn't get any money back for canceling my
Yeah.
trip.
So a lot of the times with COVID, what happened was the suppliers were canceling your trips.
Mhm.
In that case, the suppliers should have been giving a refund for you to cancel your trip. Um, our plans did not have no plans have fear of travel, is what you would call it.
Right.
So like being afraid of travel. The only plan that would have that is a cancel flex plan, essentially. However, in the case of COVID, the suppliers were canceling trips or the destinations weren't allowing tourists to come in. So therefore the supplier should have been the one canceling that trip. And then it would be on the supplier to provide a refund or a future credit in those cases.
Well, and
COVID was a fun nightmare that I don't like to play anymore.
yes, I don't like to play that either. So, but I did hear that complaint a lot, was
Mhm.
that people just, it wasn't covering them, and that kind of explains why it would not. Um,
And just to follow up on that, with Arch Room Right, we actually provided vouchers. So insurance vouchers. So if you got a
yes,
full refund, we could turn your insurance into a voucher to redeem for when you rebook that trip or another trip. So you weren't losing your insurance with us. We were able to reuse it
yeah,
at a different time.
and that was fantastic. I had a lot of clients take advantage of that.
Hmm.
Um, so cancel for any reason, and then one of the things that people talk to me a lot is they say they have insurance through their credit card,
Hmm.
and that's going to cover everything they need on their trip, and they don't need to buy insurance. Um, I have heard horror stories from other
Hmm.
agents about this happening. Can you talk a little bit about what credit card insurance may or may not cover?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference is a credit card company is a credit card company. And an travel insurance company is a travel insurance company. And if you're getting it for free included in your plan, you're getting something for free. It's not going to be all the bells and whistles that you need typically. So I encourage your travelers to actually reach out to that credit card, see if they can even get to the department that speaks about that travel assistance plan. Sometimes you're just talking to like the general customer service rep who hasn't really, can find it in in their billions of papers, but can't ever fully speak to it. Whereas travel insurance, we live it every day, we understand it. Also, look to see if it's primary medical. A lot of the times, it's going to be secondary medical coverage, which means you have to pay out of pocket for everything and submit it to your domestic insurance first, which most of the time they're going to deny, and then submit it to the insurance or to the credit card company's plan. So it just is longer, and if you're out a lot of money, it's not helpful. Um,
And
Question,
when
yeah.
you're in an emergency, how are you going to find that number?
Right, yes. Some other things is the limits are always reduced in those plans. Sometimes it doesn't cover everyone traveling with you. So you have to make sure it's not just you. If it's a husband and wife, like maybe it's the wife's credit card and your husband's the authorized user, it might not cover the authorized user. So you have to ask those questions. And if you don't book the entire trip with that card, you're basically it voids it out completely. I've had that happen to a travel advisor. Luckily, she had an annual plan with us to fall back on, but she was trying to use the credit card coverage to see how it worked, and it didn't work out for her at all.
So basically, if you book your flights and your hotels with that credit card, but you get injured while you're on an excursion that you booked with another credit card,
It might not be covered.
it might not be
Right.
covered. None of it.
And the other thing is that you have a relationship with me in Arch Room, right?
Mhm.
And so like if there ever is a situation, they can reach out to you, who you can reach out to us and ask
Yes,
questions and work with. Whereas you can't do that with a credit card company. You're just
right.
it's on they're on their own with that.
So, two examples. I had a client that did not go on a trip of hers.
Hmm.
And I emailed Jen's assistant, Samantha, and said, "Hey, I think I know how I just have a client submitting a claim." And Samantha kept an eye on it and kept me updated with it. Now,
Hmm.
the problem was the client had not gone to the doctor when she decided not to go on the trip.
Hmm. There are key
She,
things that you have to do. Yes. Hmm.
she went to the doctor after the trip was supposed to start.
Yeah.
So the doctor didn't tell her that she couldn't travel, and the claim was denied. So just make sure, if you purchase insurance through me before you decide to cancel your trip, you either call the 800 number that I give you for the insurance, or you call me directly and we'll walk you through the steps.
Hmm.
But
And yeah, I was gonna say, and that's not us just being a pain. It's
right,
how it's filed with each state. And so there is certain documentation we need. So seeing a doctor before, like you need to cancel after seeing a doctor where a doctor would tell you to cancel the trip.
right. And is that what could the telehealth come into play with you guys at that point?
Not before the trip,
Not before the trip, just during the trip.
afterwards, right?
Okay.
Yeah, during the trip, yes.
So, that was but Jen and Samantha kept me in the loop.
Hmm.
I had a response from them within 10 minutes, I believe, to
Probably.
my email. Yeah, and
Sam's really great.
Anytime I email either of them, I don't wait an entire day. It's usually just maybe a half an hour at tops.
Hmm.
The second thing what happened was I had clients in Jamaica and his insulin went missing from the room.
Hmm.
And they called me, they're like, we're going to have to come home. We have to come home now. And I said, no, you don't. You have the travel insurance.
Hmm.
And they were having problems making calls from the resort. So I called and had the 800 number
The
call,
assistance team. Mhm.
give them a call back. And they got them to a 24-hour clinic. They got them to a 24-hour pharmacy. He had his insulin that night. Honeymoon was saved.
Right.
So, and another question I had, if somebody is traveling in, say, Mexico or in a country where they don't speak a language, say they're in France
Hmm.
and they don't speak a lick of French, um, obviously, most hospitals, depending on where you're at, Paris, they're going to have interpreters. Smaller towns may or may not. Do you have assistance for that?
Yes, our team can do have interpreter calls to
Okay.
help with that kind of stuff as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that
Payment.
guarantee of payment
Yeah.
is, I hear a lot of horror stories that don't really hit the news, but
Hmm.
people with major illnesses and they're getting everybody they know to send them cash and they've maxed out all their credit cards, and that's going to be horrible when they get home
Yes,
because
I
they're going to
see
be,
the links for like send us money and stuff like that. Yes, all the
yeah,
time. And I'm just like, if they just what about the smallest plan? I mean, we have a playbook that comes out every year, and we put stories in it. And like just to share one real quick, this one story in here was it was a well, that was before the trip. It was a $500 insurance policy. We paid out over $25,000. There was an automobile accident in the country they were in, and their car got hit. So, I mean, 500, 25, $500 for $25,000 of coverage is well worth it.
right. And it's kind of like car insurance. I hate paying for it and
But it's there.
I don't plan on needing it, but I was hit recently.
Yeah.
So the car insurance was there to take care of that. So, and people ask me all the time if I buy insurance for my trips. And the answer is yes, always.
Hmm.
Um, Even if my trip was, if so, travel agents, we get to go on what are called fam trips. So I might be paying a very low amount for my trip. I'm paying for flights and then I'm paying very little to stay at a resort for a couple of days.
Hmm.
I still get the medical coverage.
Yeah, sometimes my husband comes with me on trips, and so work's paying for the room, and
Right.
so we have to pay for his Southwest flights, which are refundable. So we don't need to insure that, but we still get him an on-trip plus plan, so that there's coverage in case something were to happen.
Right, because you don't know. And even with that on trip plus, because you're insuring the bulk of your trip for zero. So if you
Right.
cancel, you're not getting a refund.
On the
But
trip, right? Yeah, you're not
on the
gonna yeah.
trip,
Mhm.
right. But it covers you medically, and what other coverage does that have?
Baggage, lost and stolen baggage or delay of baggage, misconnection, trip delay. The medical obviously is there. It's primary medical, the medical evacuation. So it's everything but cancellation.
So what does trip delay mean in the
Trip
insurance world?
Yeah, trip delay is if you are maybe delayed. Maybe your flight is delayed for I forget X amount of hours. I can't remember the
Right,
X, but it doesn't have to be actually the flight that was delayed. It means the overall time period. Like your flight could have been an hour delayed, but because of that, it's causing all these other things to happen, which is going to make you more than I think it's maybe 5 hours, 6 hours more late to where you need to be. Now that would cover you to stay where you are, and it would give you food, hotel, like accommodations and local transportation. So that was actually a huge one after travel started after COVID because you had a test to come home. And one of the things is if the sickness is a trip delay. So people had to stay for what, 10 days sometimes
mm-hmm.
afterwards. So the trip delay benefit, it's $200 per person per day that can be used towards food, hotel, and a local transportation. So that's something that can be used for that.
Okay. And I know at one point that would have come in very handy for me. Now, does that cover weather delays?
So it's any delay of a common carrier. It's
Okay.
very broad. So if it is because of weather. Now, trip interruption, if you buy a trip cancellation plan, it also includes trip interruption, which does have a weather benefit to it if there's a weather delay that's longer than, I think it's like 24 hours. Like if you're, the flight is delayed for 24 hours.
Okay. Because that does happen. And I've had clients miss 1 to 2 days of their vacation
hmm
because
And
of weather
sometimes,
delays.
yeah, because of that, maybe they only have a 5-day trip, right? So they only have 3 days left. That could turn into a cancellation in our policy, depending on how many days you have left on your trip.
Right. So very beneficial for so many reasons. And what I like to do with my clients is I offer them, I send them the quote and they can compare it. It's super easy to do. And then it's super easy to buy it from the
hmm
quote. So you guys make it easy for everybody.
We do try.
Is there anything else you think people should know about why they should get insurance?
I think the biggest thing is just always get something. Even if you don't want trip cancellation because you're definitely going, we're all definitely going. My husband's grandmother died in her sleep the night before a trip. We were definitely going until that happened. But even if you don't want to get cancellation, at a minimum, get the on trip plus plan, which is the post
Yes.
departure for medical, because that seems to be popping up more and more and more with people getting, just walking on a street. Like there's been so many trips I've been on where like, oh, if that would have just been a little bit worse, I'd be in the hospital right now. Like for myself,
Right.
like walking or like I walk in heels. I can't walk in heels, but I try, tripping on them and
And the
things.
and that particular policy is relatively inexpensive.
Absolutely. It's about
I
$50 for somebody under 50, I think, and it goes up
yeah,
a little bit from there.
I think the last
Yeah.
time I bought it was $42 and I'm
Yes, that might be
55.
right.
I'm
Yeah.
55. So it's very reasonable if that's at least have something. One thing I did want to mention, you said for the cancel for any reason that has to be purchased within 21 days.
hmm
What about pre-existing conditions?
That also has to be purchased within 21 days, and that comes in play with the Pro Plus and the Cancel Flex plan. It would have that. You just have to insure your entire non-refundable amount
Okay.
for that to be there for your clients, the pre-existing conditions,
Okay.
and that's for you as well as non-traveling family members. So that's
Okay.
kind of the biggest key of that.
Right. So if you have an older parent that really is perfectly healthy right now,
Or maybe they're
if
not telling you something, right?
right,
Like they
right.
might not be telling you something and you want to get that pre-ex so that we don't look back from the day you buy the policy. It just goes from there on. Um,
And the other thing, so if you already have a pre-existing condition, definitely within that 21 days. Um,
absolutely.
and then what I tell people is if you don't currently you have zero pre-existing conditions, what if you blow out your knee between the time you buy the trip and the time you don't buy it within the insurance within that 21 days, and then you blow out your knee and you decide to buy the insurance?
Yeah, you can't buy it after it happens. You can't have a car accident and then buy car insurance. You can't
Right.
you can't have an situation and then buy travel insurance. You want to get it before the incident happens, which is big.
Right. So just just some points if you have it. And thanks, Jen, for talking to
Of
us
course,
today.
yeah.
Really appreciate it. If you have any questions about insurance that we did not answer here, put it in the comments and or send me an email and I'm happy to answer those. And if I don't know the answer, I'll put you in touch with Jen or I'll ask Jen
Perfect.
because she knows everything to do with
I
insurance.
try.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Jen. I really
Of
appreciate your
course.
time
Thanks for
today.
having me. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.
Where do I?